Well, Scott, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I'm just going to start off with a quote. So,
Okay.
the former president of the 20th century, Fox, Stephen Moore, had this to say about you. Scott Vickers is an exceptional talent with a highly unique and daring vision. He said this in relation to your writing and directing. I mean, you're known for way more than that. Before directing, you were an actor. You started out in theater and most notably appeared in the London's West End production of Chicago. That's amazing. We're going to talk more about that. You then moved to screen and appeared in over 250 episodes of TV drama, including a 4-year lead role in BBC drama River City. You then went on to write and direct Matriarch, which was bought by Lionsgate, and you're about to shoot 2 more feature films. And yet, there's another area you've made a name for yourself in. You're also a renowned acting coach. I have another quote here. Myron Arslan, founder of MJB Talent in Los Angeles, said, quote, Scott is the best coach around. No one comes close. He has helped many of my clients land the biggest roles in TV and film. There's one last thing to mention, and this part absolutely blows my mind. You didn't go to drama school or film school at all. I don't even understand how that's even possible. So why don't we just start there? Because obviously that's a lot to dig into. It's not a small introduction for obvious reasons. So why don't we start there? How did you get your start, or how did you even decide that this was the path you were going to go down, and not even attend school for it?
Wow. Well, thank you. That's quite an introduction. Going down memory lane. So firstly, thanks so much for inviting me on. Really pleasure to be here. And how did I so I started very young as a kid, a child actor really, and I pretty much just did amateur dramatics, theatre club and performing arts club and things like that growing up from a very young age. My mother was into performing in theatre, and I actually have my great grandparents were actually famous entertainers on ships like transatlantic ships, a bit like Titanic. Well, obviously they didn't go on the
Wow.
Titanic, thank God, but they
I was
were
gonna
called
say we can.
and
That's a
that,
whole other story if
but they
possible.
did these big liners across the Atlantic from New York to Southampton, and they were very well-known entertainers. They were called the Bon Airs, and actually my grand my grandmother was American, and my grandfather was British. Maybe it's the other way around. Can't remember exactly, but anyway, they met on these ships and they formed this entertainment duo. And he played the piano. They both played the piano and tap danced on these ships, and they were very big. I've seen like these old-fashioned scrolls, and they were called the world famous Bon Airs, and they entertained in front of
Wow.
royalty and all sorts. And so maybe it runs in the blood, but to cut a long story short, my my parents just put me into these classes, and I kind of veered more towards sports and kind of active stuff, and I found that I just loved theatre, and that's how it started. And the reason why I didn't go to stage school or drama school was, well, my parents couldn't afford it really, and I actually just I was at a certain level by the time I got to like 16, 17, 18. And
Mhm.
so I moved to London and just took class. I just went and did class and then started to audition. And I found that I was having success or even though I wasn't formally trained, I found that I was getting through in auditions. So I just thought I'm just going to keep going. And actually my first job, I got a role as a lead performer or a lead soloist at the Moulin Rouge in Paris when I was 18.
Oh my God. Okay.
And that's going back a lot. So I'm 46 now, and I was 18 then. So that's a while ago.
That's mind
And
blowing. Can you get free tickets still?
probably not. I mean, probably, but I wouldn't. Hey, I used
Well,
to perform
we'll talk
here.
about that after. I mean, just show up with your headshot from around that time and be like, works. No, that's incredible. I mean, I feel like for so many actors, aspiring actors, I feel like there's always this kind of feeling that if you can't get into that right conservatory program, if you can't
Yeah.
get into that right school that's going to get you that, push forward, then there's no hope into
Yeah.
getting to the next step. And I think hearing your story and the
Mm.
fact that you didn't actually attend any of those kinds of programs and just went and just took class and auditioned and just did what you had to do, and
Mm.
you managed to get to where you are now, I think that alone is just incredibly inspiring and motivating. I mean, when I was, 18, 17, if I heard something like that, I mean, I would have such a sigh of relief. I mean, I have that now too. I love hearing that there's so many things that you can still do going
Yeah.
forward, and all of these kinds of stigmas around not going to those conservatory programs, especially with stage, I would
Yeah.
say, is
Yeah.
definitely, it's great hearing that you had this whole other path, and a lot of it was just how motivated you were to do
Mm.
it because you knew that
Yeah.
this is what you wanted to do.
Yeah. Did you go to
Yeah.
stage school? Did you?
I
You did.
did, but
Okay.
I did not go to a conservatory.
Okay.
Um, the school that I went to, it was great for what it did, but it
Yeah.
was definitely not any kind of conservatory program is what I could afford at the
Yeah.
time as well.
Well,
So,
there's a big stigma, right? It's like,
yeah.
okay, as a kid starting, looking to go into the industry, do
Mhm.
I go to one of the top, say in America, the top five, for example?
Yep.
Very difficult to go into it. You're gonna spend in America probably 100 to 150 grand to go to the top ones.
Easily.
In Britain, it's like 50, I would say 50 grand for 3 years to go to RADA, but that's before you think about how much it costs to actually live in London.
Yeah.
RADA or Lambda or Central or one of those big ones, it's a little bit less than the American ones, but still big. So then there's
Yeah.
the pressure to go to then when you leave it to then do well. My parents have spent all this money. There's the pressure to do that. And there's one thing that I hear, it seems like I hear it every day from actors that come out of drama school. They contact me and go, I've been out of drama school a year and I'm feeling lost. I feel lost.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you, it's nearly every day. So what
Yeah.
is happening with these drama schools and from America as well and the UK? I've been out of drama school for a year, 2 years, and I just feel lost. I don't have an
Mhm.
agent. I'm not getting castings. I feel lost. And my heart sinks because I know that they've spent so much money and so much commitment to doing that. And
Yep.
I am actually very opposed to people going to drama school. I'll say that now. I'm not against drama schools per se,
Yeah.
fundamentally, but what are you getting really out of it more than someone say going to class?
Mhm.
You still end up in the same position
Yep.
of 90%, 95% of people that graduate from stage school, theatre school, because really at the end of, and this is how they push it, at the end of the big drama schools, they say, we'll do a third year or fourth year showcase and we'll invite agents. That's what happens with RADA and the top ones. Yes, a
Mhm.
lot of big agencies will go and see, but they're only looking at a few people. They're only looking at a few of the leads that are doing it.
Yeah.
What about the other 99% of the people in the year? They're not getting
Yeah.
looked at. They've spent the same money.
Exactly.
So I find it really, you don't need to go to drama school to be successful. And when I was working as a screen actor, and the same now as being a director, most successful actors seemingly didn't go.
Yeah.
So what's going on there? You know?
No, I mean, I think just overall, there's definitely a shift about college in general. But I think especially you're right. I mean, I've had people since I've graduated tell me they've watched me act and then they'll say, "This is great. You need to shake off the school though. Like you need to shake off a lot of that training that you
Yeah,
took because it's so formal and it's so, it's a lot about trying to get these technicalities down and less about kind
techniques,
of yeah,
methodologies.
yep,
Yeah.
exactly. And it
It
starts
actually
kind of
holds you back,
turning
right?
into
Sometimes
yeah,
a lack of authenticity because I've got to do it this way and that way and the techniques and
exactly. Yeah, yeah. People were like, you need to start showing who you are. And I think you lost that through a lot of that
yeah,
training because a lot of the times that training tends to be, yeah, just as A, B, C, D as possible. When in reality, I mean, acting as a whole, it's nothing but trying to show your true self and be like, this is how I would personally portray this kind of person or character, what have you. So the fact that, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me that you went and just started focusing on your own growth and how that was translated into the audition room. It doesn't surprise me that you got to where you are.
Mm.
And doesn't surprise me that a lot of other incredibly, fortunate people
Yeah.
also had that same kind of story.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's this whole thing about drama school where I hear it a lot. Oh, we have to break you down. We have to break
Yeah.
you down so
Yep.
you are somehow you're a blank canvas, and then
Mhm.
we can build you up so you can play any roles. And yet, in the industry, film and TV, what do? They want real characters and typecast. They want to typecast. I mean, look at Robert De Niro. He plays the same. I mean, he's an incredible actor.
Yeah.
It's the same character over and over again. So why are drama schools wanting to break you down to to have this blank canvas when in the industry wants real characters to play similar characters to themselves, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I feel like a lot of the conversation tends to be about they don't talk a lot about what is actually happening in the industry. And I've learned far more, and I've talked to a lot of other actors who feel the same way, that they said the second they stepped out of school, they learned so
Mm,
much more in that first 8 months of being outside of school than they had in a really, really long time, because it feels like you have to relearn a lot of different things being in the
yeah.
real world, quote.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's amazing. So how did you end up on West End?
So I went and early on in my career, I went down the performing arts route more than acting, definitely. I was naturally athletic, so I did a lot of dancing and I went and trained ballet and singing, and I was drawn towards musical theatre. And so I just set my sights on that. And I just trained really hard. And then I auditioned initially for cruise ships, and I did Royal Caribbean cruise ships for a while as a singer, dancer, actor. It was great because we actually did smaller versions of musical theatre shows. They licensed actual shows like
So much
Crazy
fun.
for You and 42nd Street and stuff. And what I found was that a lot of these companies really wanted me because I could do lots of different things. Like I could tap and sing and, you know, um, all these different kind of skills. And it was useful for that type of show because you had to do all these different things. And
Yeah.
so I did cruise ships for a while. Then I came back to London and started to audition. And I found that I did a lot. I did very well in kind of commercial stuff. So there's like a bit of a crossover with commercial dance and modeling, and I did a lot of that for a while because I was tall.
Yep.
And then I wanted to push for the West End. I want it's such a yardstick, right? To be on the West End. It's like being on Broadway. And I just thought I have to push for the West End. So I just trained as hard as I could and auditioned for shows a bit like Chicago because again I was tall um and athletic, so I was a fit for that. And I was it my first yeah, my first audition. I got through to the finals and they said your dancing is perfect for Chicago. You need to work a little bit on your voice. So they said my singing was good, but my range wasn't enough. But so I worked on that, and they said, right, we'll give you a contract, and I stayed in it for 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's, oh my God. That's amazing. I mean, especially Chicago. Out of
it's
all the
great.
shows, what an amazing show to be a
It's a
part
cool
of for
show.
West End. So
It's a
did
cool
you do
show.
any more stage after that, or is that when you started
No,
kind of
that's when I
going back
that's when I
up?
transitioned over to screen acting. So during Chicago, I was mentored a lot by some of the actors that came in to play Billy Flynn, especially a guy called Terrence Maynard, who is an actor that he's done a lot of supporting lead roles in a lot of big films like Revolver and the one with Tom Cruise, science fiction with Tom Cruise. I can't think of the name now. A very big film, and I just really looked up to him, and he kind of supported me and said, "You're a really good actor. You should focus on acting. You could do it on TV. You could get on screen." And I decided, okay, I'm going to go in that direction. And then again, I went back to class in London, and it's funny because this I often reflect on this because when I decided, okay, I just want to do straight acting now, I went and took so many classes in London. And, London is known for its fantastic acting classes. Could I
Mhm.
find a class that actually taught script work or give me some sides, let me learn it and let's perform it?
Yeah.
I could not find it. It was kind of all acting exercises and games and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I got really frustrated. Like, give me a script. Let's do an audition. Let's do a self tape. Why are all these games and it was always so important to do all these games. And I found it really frustrating. And I think I spent a year looking for the right class in London. I never found it
Wow.
really. But luckily, someone recommended me to go to an acting coach called Paul Gregory. Paul Gregory was mentored by Sir Laurence Olivier, who was a big famous Shakespearean actor, and there's an awards ceremony, a bit like the Tonys in the UK. It's the Laurence Olivier Awards, the Olivier Awards. So I thought, wow, that's I want to be that's the company I want to be in. So I went and worked with him for 6 months, and as soon as I started to work with him, things really started to click. I started to audition, I got an agent, and then I started to get small roles on TV. Uh,
Wow.
and that's what happened. And then eventually, after about a year, 2 years of doing lots of different dramas, smaller roles, I landed a lead role in a show called River City in Scotland, which is a big show in Scotland. And I stayed there for 4 years. And during that time, I'd already started to study directing and writing. And, I've been doing that for a long time, even before that. And so once I'd finished that lead role in River City, I decided, right, I want to actually start making my own stuff now. And
Yeah.
that's what happened.
That's, I mean, that's amazing. I feel like it's so true that artists are so multifaceted inherently.
Yeah.
So the fact that you were able to, go from one format to the next to being like, you know what, I actually want to start facilitating and creating what I want to create, I think it's just amazing. And I think a lot of times artists tend to think that there's only one path or there's one street for them. They're good at
Yeah.
this one thing, so let me stick to this one thing. But I mean, especially from your story, you can tell it's just one thing is meant to lead to another thing. I mean,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to formats of acting, I think a lot of times people say, they're a stage actor and they are a stage actor. And
Mm.
then there's people who say that they're film actors and they're nothing but film actors. But you're kind of helping prove the point that if you're an actor, you're an actor. If you're an artist, and you can do multiple things with whatever that may mean to you,
Yeah.
and just kind of continue to go along with whatever path ends up being right for you. I mean, I have a feeling, did you ever think that you were going to be like a director, producer, acting coach? Was that something that was like in your dreams growing up?
I mean, no, not when I was young. I mean, looking
Yeah.
back when I was young, I had a knack of storytelling because the one thing I was good at school was English writing stories. So I
Mm.
loved storytelling, but there was never an opening for me to even think about directing. Directing just seemed to be something so far off and different
Yeah.
from the path that I was on. But as soon as I started to get on a set, I started to really think that's what I want to do. That guy's job. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
that's cool. He's creating. He's the ringmaster here, and he just knows. It just there's something that really attracted me to that, and also at the same time, understanding writing and script and storytelling is so important. To understand the writing was so important. So that's something that I spent a lot of time focusing on. But no, I never thought that I would become a director early on, and I also never imagined I would become an acting coach. That's something that I mean, hearing Myron Arslan from MJB Talent say that, was like he thinks I'm the best acting coach around, that's incredible, because it's something I never thought that I would do. Teach, support.
Yeah.
But I get so much out of it, especially when one of my actors gets a big role on something. It's like I'm part of that now. And I think it fits in as well with directing, because some directors, all directors really should be connected to their actors and supporting their actors. And it's part of the love of directing for me, is that creativity alongside the actors. That's something I really love.
Yeah. I mean, when we first talked, I said to it was just I think it's so amazing the duo of being a director and being an acting coach, because I think you're right. I totally agree. I think every single director should be an acting coach, because I think that there's this ability, I mean, especially with your background of being an actor, so understanding what that side of the camera looks like, and then being behind the camera, and then trying to put those two things together and being able to kind of level it together and make sure that you understand where the actor is actually coming from. I think it's such an important skill, and I think it's not a skill that's necessarily used as much as we need it to be, because especially as actors, we're all needing to be guided by the director, and you being an acting coach just makes it kind of like, my guess is like, it's just so inherent for you at this point that you understand how to guide actors in a way that makes them understand, and not a way that's just in your language but in their language as well.
Absolutely. I love it when I'm working with actors. There's often these aha moments with actors. I help a lot of actors with self tapes, and it's just, you can't, as an actor, it's very difficult to be objective. And it's like you don't know it until you're told it. And often with actors, when I'm working with their self tapes, a lot of actors come to me and say, I'm just, I'm getting in the casting kind of route for parts. I'm getting picked, and I'm getting some recalls, but I never land the role. And so I work with a lot of actors that are just not quite getting there, and straight away I see things with their self tapes that are just so obvious to me but not obvious to the actor, and it's
Yeah.
just tweaking it. And so many times actors will go, oh my God, I see it now. I'm not doing it. And then they go off and they start landing the roles. So it's always the little things with self tapes, always little things that the actors don't realize they're doing. And it's so
Mhm.
important to have that perspective from a director. It can help so much. And as soon as the actors see it, they know it, they see it. And
Yeah.
important, you know.
Yeah, what are is there like a one or two things that you see consistently when people come to you for self tapes, or is it kind of different with every single actor that comes to you?
It's different with a lot of actors. One of the very common things actually is something that I call swimming. It's when actors start to swim on self tapes, and this is because you're on your own in a room with a scene. There's probably no one acting opposite you. You're probably getting someone to read in via Zoom or something,
Yep.
or if it's a family member reading in. And what happens with actors is they find the need to fill the space with more acting. And something that I look at when I'm watching self tapes as a director in the casting situation is an actor so connected to the moment that they allow for the stillness, because that's what happens in reality. In the way
Mhm.
that you're now talking to me, you're just focused on me, you're nodding a little bit, but you're not doing a lot because you're listening. So when a human being is listening, their senses are out. There's often a lot of stillness. But with actors, they fill the space. And it takes
Now I'm
you out of the
so aware.
moment, and it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
can an act, and it take there is a knack to self tapes, and it's, can an actor just commit to that reality of the moment and it not be a self tape? If
yeah.
there's something happening
Holding the
over
stillness.
there and you're listening, then just listen, just listen. And it's hard, right? Because your mum's
Oh yeah.
reading in for you, or your gran is reading in for you. So, it can be difficult, but you've got to use your imagination. Imagine it's Al Pacino over there reading in for you. What is that going to be like? You know?
No, I mean, yeah, you caused me a lot of anxiety in that moment. No, it makes a lot of sense. I feel like people tend to, I feel like a good, equivalent is, how just in general people tend to want to fill the silence.
Yeah.
They always like, people don't want to sit still in that silence in any kind of conversation, so they continue to talk until someone else starts talking. And I think it's the kind of the same thing, but make it in the actor's world, where you
Yeah.
want to fill that silence, and the best way to fill that silence is to fill it physically, fill that silence so that it doesn't seem like, you could be uncomfortable in any of
Yeah.
these moments. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense, that no one actually knows that they're doing it until you're
So
like,
funny. And
guys.
it's an important part of human nature. And so when you see an actor filling in the space, you're like, oh, they're acting, and it takes you out of the moment. It's one of the exercises I tell when I'm teaching a class or a course. I say, now go and regard human nature. Just go and watch from an actor's point of view. For example, you're sitting in a cafe or Starbucks or something, you see people in a queue waiting. The stillness is incredible. Even when they order, yeah, I'll have an oat milk latte, and they sit and they stand there, and it's like, it's an incredible amount of stillness.
Blowing.
And even someone in an argument, when the other person is shouting, the other person is going, you do this, the other person's like that, like,
Because it's just processing.
yeah,
That's
you're
all that's going
processing.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, and it's like, it's important to understand what we do in reality and bring that into, and stop acting. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying method at all, because I don't particularly agree with method either, because acting on a set, for example, is an altered state. We're altering reality to make it
Mhm.
look real on the end result. So it's not about being fully real as well, but it's about having that baseline in reality. Okay, what is the reality here? And then how do we have to modify it to make it work for TV and film?
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Is there any vocal things that tend to happen? I feel like I'm always so highly, and I've heard a lot of people say this, like just very highly aware of the way that their voice sounds when I mean, one, no one likes to listen to their voice,
Yeah.
period. But especially when you're acting, I feel like a lot of times people tend to alter their natural voice, or if the register or whatever. Do you have like a vocal thing that happens that you find in people?
Yeah. I mean, often, it's becoming very hyper aware, isn't it, of yourself? And I think there is something about altering your voice sometimes. I mean, the Alexander technique is a good one, but it's actually just about more relaxing in your body, so your voice is maybe more in your chest, for example. But it all depends on the person. Some people have just a very naturally conducive voice for acting. Morgan Freeman, I'm sure, has never done any voice lessons. He's just naturally,
I don't
people
think
like
he
that.
needs it.
No,
Yeah.
of course. So it all depends. But if you hear your voice back and you think, actually, it sounds to something that I don't like, then it's possible to, alter alter the way that you speak. And it all
Mhm.
depends on the person. It's all personal, I think. But sometimes it's necessary.
Yeah, that makes sense. This has been, I've been so hyper aware of everything through this conversation now. I'm like, how do I like move my head naturally at this point? I mean, I feel like it's the same as when you're
What
walking down
is
the street.
reality? How do you
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're walking down the street and you're like, do I swing my
do I
hands?
walk with the same arm to
Yeah.
leg? I have to relearn everything again.
I feel like that makes a lot of sense. Okay, it doesn't make sense, but it feels like it makes sense that we would walk with the same arm and leg at the same time. So I don't know. I agree. I've had that breakdown, existential crises quite a few times. So it makes a lot of sense. But I think I agree though. I think it's so important that that actors are able to have someone, and
Mhm.
especially like a non-judgmental, very safe haven-esque kind of people who understand these struggles because you've had these struggles,
Yeah.
and understanding how to let them know in a way that they can actually approach it without it just being like, you're doing this, figure it out, and more of
Mm.
here's what's happening, here are solutions because I've been there myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think that's so when I first like googled you, I was so excited about the mix of different things that you do because I feel like all of them attach so well together, when in reality it feels like a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm only a director,
Yeah.
I'm only a producer, I'm only an acting coach, when in
Yeah.
reality it's so helpful. One thing will always benefit the
It's a
other.
very interesting perspective, I have to admit,
Yeah.
to do it, to a certain level, like I have, and bring it all together is a very, very interesting perspective. And
Yeah.
it is very useful for actors to get that perspective because I'm just passing on knowledge, what I know, what I've actually done in the industry professionally for a very long time on TV, in film, and in theatre. I'm just passing that knowledge on. I'm absolutely happy to help in any way I can, mentor actors and help them succeed. I am, I've never been, I've never wanted to withhold my knowledge or guidance at all because I know that you have to put so much personal work in yourself as an actor anyway. And
Yep.
why would I not want to share it? I want to share what I know. And it's for me, what I really enjoy doing is kind of looking at certain knowledge that I have and
Mhm.
putting it into a workable way to actually explain it. And I really enjoy that because at the end of the day, I can't just plug my brain into someone else. I have to put it into a word, create
Totally.
some sort of exercise to be able to explain what I mean. And there's one
Yeah.
particular, what you were talking about before, which is there's a dichotomy, there's a contradiction almost with actors in that you have to be self-conscious to look at yourself and go, is that right? Am I acting authentically? Is that right?
Yeah.
But you have to dispose of self-consciousness to actually do your job. How do you do that? Because if you're an actor and you walk onto a set with 100 people, between 20 and 100 people can be on a set, on a film set or a TV
Mhm.
set. If you're self-conscious, you can't do your job. What's
Yeah.
she thinking? Oh, what's makeup thinking? Oh, the director, am I doing it right? The other actors, oh my God, I've dropped a line. That means it'd be impossible. A very good actor has the ability to go, right, I'm doing my thing, I'm going to get in my flow, because you have to be able to get into your flow to be in character and deliver those authentic performance, be in the flow, let go of your lines, just go for it. Because acting is so complex if you're not doing that. What, thinking all these other thoughts about
Mhm.
what's the director thinking, what's the DP, what my co-actors are thinking, am I doing this right? There's no way in God's good earth that you can put over a good performance if you're having these other thoughts. So
Yeah.
how does an actor in a room full of people looking at you to deliver your lines, how does an actor deliver a performance? How does an actor deliver an authentic performance and get all your lines? Well, it takes a certain type of person, a certain type of training to be able to let go of self-consciousness fully, to be in that
Mhm.
moment. And that is often what divides actors when it comes to a big role in TV. It's not talent, it's can they handle this psychologically?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. All about mindset. I was talking to this one casting director before, and one of the things that he said was if you are constantly focusing on everyone else's opinions and only relying on them and not trusting your own gut, you're going to have the hardest career of your life. And it's not going to last long because you're
It's
not
going
going
to
to
be
be able to
impossible.
see it. Yeah, exactly. You're just going to be like just shriveling up constantly. And, it's so hard. It's so much easier said than done to say, you're right. I'm going to stop and really focus on what I'm feeling and trust my own artistic instincts and my own talent and kind of start shutting out the rest of the world. Even when it comes to just submitting auditions, just being like, oh, great, I did it. That is the best that I can do. I loved that audition. I loved those choices that I made.
Mhm.
I'm gonna let it go because in
Mm.
the end, everyone's opinions are their own opinions and you can't control that.
No.
But that's where you come in. I mean, I feel like it's
Yeah.
so hard to actually say, great, I'm gonna do this. How do I actually
Yeah.
do this? How
Yeah.
how am I not going to just completely
Exactly.
rely on all those different eyes that are continuously staring at me and
Yeah.
all of those opinions that I feel like I really need?
Hmm.
But in needing those opinions aren't going to be as, favorable,
Yeah.
let's say.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like it's so much easier said than done. So it's amazing that you're able to create these tools and kind of talk actors into understanding the ways to kind of manipulate your own mindset. Because I
Mhm.
feel like it's so difficult to manipulate your own mindset. It's, again, easier said
Yeah.
than done. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's a very important part of acting is understanding your mind and how to work with your mind. And it's something that's very popular in the arts world, the artistic world, is, positive thinking. I will do this, I am going to do it, but all that is all very well, but it doesn't actually, you can say that as many times as you want, affirmations, but it doesn't really help in the end. You can say, I'm going to do this I'm going to do this audition amazing, I'm going to let go, I don't care. You walk into the audition room. I mean, you have to do deep work. You have to
Yeah.
understand what your mind is thinking. And a great man once said, there's a guy called K. Bradford Brown, who is the psychologist that developed the type of psychological work that I'm trained in, the type of coaching that I'm trained in, called K. Bradford Brown. And he said that positive thinking is like sugar-coated turds, because you're just sugarcoating it. You can
That's
say these
so
things all you
true.
want, but are they, have you really shifted something? Your mind, you can't control your mind. You can't.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can work on your state and understand your mind and your mind talk, something we call mind talk, and you can work with it and you can falsify and get into your purpose. But it's about understanding what you're thinking and feeling and how to process that to then move forward. You can't say just stop thinking. Good luck. People say you've got to control your mind. Good luck controlling your mind. It's not going to happen. Your mind will end up controlling you if you try and control your mind in a,
Yeah.
in a bad way.
No, it's true. I feel like the times that I've really tried to focus on positive thinking are the times that I just feel like I'm always like trying to grab for strings at that point.
Do you
It's
find
just
there's a
like
backlash from your mind? If you really
exactly.
start hammering the positive thinking, often there's a backlash. Initially, you can feel good, you can get some sort of, yes, I'm going to do it, but it doesn't last. And often what happens is there's almost an equal and opposite backlash from your brain, from your mind. And that is very, very common because you're not pulling the wool over you're not, you're kind of, to say it, there's no other way to say it, you can't bullshit your own mind. You
Yeah.
can't, because if you've got some guiding belief underneath saying you're actually not talented and you know it, you're not talented because all these things happened because you failed here in the past, you can say, no, I'm good, I'm positive, I'm brilliant what I do, but your mind is just going to come back with, yeah, but that thing happened, and you're actually, you're not talented, and all this stuff called all this mind talk starts to
Mhm.
surface when you're hitting it. And for some reason it tends to make it worse. We don't know why exactly, but it's to do with not acknowledging the what we call the negative stuff. Negative mind talk is important. It's important. It's part of life. There's a reason why you're having those thoughts, and it needs to be investigated, because what it's going to do is it's actually going to draw you to the root of the problem, that what is happening. And all that stuff that you're telling yourself, all mind talk, what we call mind talk, chatter, self chatter, there's lots of different terms
Yeah.
for it. It's actually 99% of it is false. It's normally false. It's
Yeah.
basically a judgment, a meaning based. You're putting meaning on lots of different things, and the way the mind works in black and white. It's either good or it's bad, but life isn't like that. It's just things are what they are. It doesn't mean that they're good or bad. It's generally neutral, but we're putting meaning on it, and that's what's doing the damage. And you have to kind of cut that off. You have to understand it. You have to falsify it, really, before you can move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
People
That's not
believe it. We
necessarily a one
believe
day.
that. We believe that voice in our head,
Yeah.
but it's not, none of it's real. And people are shocked when I'm working with people's minds and they come up with a piece of mind talk, and it's, I have to do better. I have to do better. Is that true? Is that true or false? Well, of course, I have to do better. Do you have to do better? Yes. Okay, what is better? What does better mean? It means being better. Okay. And do you have to? What, is someone holding a gun to your head? Uh, no. And it's like, in that moment, they're like, fuck, that's just a
Yeah.
useless nothing. But it has me around the neck, and it
Yeah.
has me feeling depressed and down on myself. And it's just a meaningless piece of mind talk. And so, and times by 10 and all sorts of that, what it links to, and guiding beliefs and core beliefs and stuff. And before you know it, you're depressed and you don't want to go out. And a lot
Yeah.
of it is just not true.
That's just, I mean, it's mind blowing that so many false facts in our own brain can feel so real that it just stops us from being able to do those things. It stops us from being able to go and do those auditions because
Yeah.
we think that we're not good enough to do it because we have to do better before we
Hey,
get to
look,
something
it can
like
stop
that.
everything. Mind talk
Yeah.
can lead someone to taking their own life.
Mhm.
It can do the ultimate damage, mind talk.
Yep.
So it's to be taken seriously.
Hmm. Yeah, that's not easy work, I would argue.
No.
I feel like it's not, it's also not easy to start that because I feel like it's so much easier to try and get those band-aids on it before actually being like, you know what, we're going to really look at what this is, why it's happening, and kind of face the realities of that. And I feel like so many people have such a difficult time actually starting that process. So having someone who's able to understand multiple levels where they can make them feel like it's okay and we can start from step one and I know where we can go from here. I just need you to let me show you what we can do from this
Yeah.
is amazing. And it's great how many people you have actually had this process with and how many people have just become so successful and
Mm.
so much happier since they started understanding that mind talk, which I love that term.
Yeah.
That mind talk is so false yet so strong and powerful, and
Yeah.
how do we take that power back from it?
Yeah. Exactly. And it's
Yeah.
freedom as well. It's freedom that it's truth. And this is what I say a lot, is that telling the truth about any situation is the bridge to freedom. That's when and that term, that saying, becomes more profound once you've started to do the work, because there's something called, in the work that I do, called truth telling, and it's about telling the absolute objective truth about any situation, and it's massively powerful. And of course, it's experiential. It's easy to say, but until you actually go through the process with your own experiences, that's when it hits you and you're like, holy shit, I've been lying to myself. And we do it all the time. We do it every
Yeah.
day. We lie to ourselves about events that
Mhm.
happen, and it's all false. It's incredible. And when you start to walk the path with this knowledge, you start to look at the world differently. You start to look at other people differently when you start to understand, well, they've had an event, a trigger that's created, and there's mind talk, and they are now reactive due to that mind talk. So you start seeing people as human beings that are fallible and are, you know, they are at the risk of believing their mind talk. So you start to be more sympathetic to
Yeah.
people in general, you know, and you understand that what they're going through is because of meaning they're putting on it. It's not them, as they're not inherently bad, or you know, they're acting out of reactivity because of meaning they're putting on something, and it becomes a very different way to look at the world. So it's an interesting path to walk.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm very excited to actually just book a session with you at this point.
You're sold, right? I'm booking a
I'm
session.
sold. Between this and understanding UK pop culture more through you.
Yeah,
Um, I feel like I've learned quite a ton. So thank you so much again for jumping on this call
no
and,
worries. No, it's
you
been
know,
great. It's been great. It's
yeah.
been great to chat. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.